For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Curtis Rogers. He is a pre- and post-game host for the Seattle Mariners over there at 710 Seattle Sports. He does a great job of breaking down this game as we're going to be looking at the AL West with him, what we've been seeing over the last few weeks. Certainly have to touch upon the Baltimore Orioles and that just catastrophe that we've seen out there. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you'll have one of two ways to be able for those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larry CM, maybe it does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Otherwise, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast by that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions, but everything today is powered by Edge Boost over at Edge Boost. They make sure that bettors are able to access their accounts 24/7, 365 on leap years 366 for all gambling-related transactions. You are able to earn cashback rewards with Edge Boost, and when you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That gets you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Sunday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Texas Rangers have been your top under team all season long, and they provided another under 15 overs, 32 unders, and a push for the Astros. They do get the job done by a count of 4-3 as Framber Valdez makes the start and gives up 3 runs over the course of 7 innings, but Brian Abreu, Josh Hader, they close the door with scoreless 8th and 9th innings. Isaac Paredes is able to go deep off of Robert Garcia, his 7th home run in the campaign, and Jack Leiter gives one up to Yenier Diaz, 5th home run season for Leiter. He goes 7 innings, he gives up 3 runs himself, so both starters pretty solid in this one. Robert Garcia gives up that home run in his inning of work, and then you saw Luke Jackson give you a scoreless inning. By the way, Chris Martin throws 1 pitch, and then he had to leave this game, so that's a little bit suspect there for the Texas Rangers. A little bit suspect what we've seen out of the Boston Red Sox recently. They had a comeback win on Saturday, but on Sunday they get pounded by the Atlanta Braves by a count of 10-4. Spencer Schwellenbach does allow 4 runs over the course of 7 innings, including a home run. Rafael Devers, his 9th home run in the campaign, but Marcell Ozuna supplies a home run off to Sean Newcomb, his 8th home run of the season. As for Brian Bayo, I thought regression was coming, and boy, oh boy, was a regression monster hungry. 7 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings. Newcomb from there gives up that home run, 3 runs in total over the course of 4 2/3 innings, so a rock-solid win and a rock-solid over in that one. A team has been very good to the over thus far this season. That would be the Chicago Cubs. As a matter of fact, they have the highest over rate in all baseball. And you saw this total in a lot of places at a 7.5 against the Chicago White Sox. That does go over 6-2. The Cubs get the job done for Jonathan Cannon. Not necessarily the start that he was looking for. 4 runs, 3 of which weren't given up in 5 innings. Steven Wilson, a scoreless inning. You had Miguel Castro give up a run in 1 1/3 innings, and Brandon Hyde, he gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Now, you did have Miguel Vargas get a 6th home run in the campaign. That comes off of Colin Ray, who's been really good for the Cubs. Hip hip hooray for Colin Ray, giving up 1 run in 5 2/3 innings. You have Julian Merriweather give up a run in an inning, but Ryan Presley, Brad Keller, they both on a scoreless inning, and Drew Pomeranz, pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless. Another team has been very good to the over. That would be the Miami Marlins, although their game was underwhelming on Sunday as they do take down the Tampa Bay Rays by a count of 5-1. As for Cal Quantrill, he actually had an immaculate inning in this game. You don't see that very often. And for Mr. Quantrill, has been suspect this year to say the least. He gives up 1 run over the course of 5 innings. From there, Jesus Sunoco, Calvin Fauché, Anthony Bender, Ronnie Enriquez all ended scoreless inning, and had a pair of bombs from the Miami Marlins as you were able to have Otto Lopez go deep. That was home run number 3 of the campaign, and then you get a home run number 4 out of Liam Hicks. As for Hicks, he was able to go deep off of the Shane Baz, who allowed both of those home runs. 5 runs in total over the course of 6 innings. Cole Sulser from there, 2 scoreless innings, and for the Rays, just 3 hits, so not a lot doing for them. Nothing doing right now for the Baltimore Orioles. Good grief, this is rough. They are now 15-30 and 0-2 since the managerial change, 10-4. The Washington Nationals take it to them. Zach Eflin was pretty efflin awful. He lost 4 home runs, 8 runs in total in 5+ innings. As for the Nationals, he had Josh Bell be able to go deep a little bit later on off of Brian Baker, 6th home run of the campaign as Baker gives up a solo home run in his inning of work. You had from there Keegan Aiken, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and Cade Stoward, he made his MLB debut. He gave up a run in an inning, but for the Nationals also going yard, you had Mr. Luis Garcia Jr. get his 4th home run of the season. CJ Abrams, he goes deep twice, 7th and 8th home runs of the season, including on pitch number 1 of the game, and Jacob Cruz, 6th home run of the season. For Mike Soroka, his first win in 2 years, 3 runs allowed over the course of 5 2/3 innings, did allow a pair of home runs as Cedric Mullins got his 9th home run of the campaign, Gunnar Henderson his 7th, and then off of Brad Lord, you did have Jackson Holiday get home run number 6 of the campaign for Lord, gives up a solo home run in his inning work, but Orde Lopez along with Mr. Cole Henry both on the scoreless inning, and Andrew Chafin and out of the bullpen. So the Orioles, they just continue to be in stinkitude mode, and for the Cincinnati Reds, they were on to a really nice win as they were able to get a 3-1 victory over the Cleveland Guardians. Reds, by the way, 28 unders, 18 overs, and 2 pushes this far this season, and for Cleveland, just not a lot doing at the plate as they went, I believe, 2 of 16 with men in scoring position, and Luis Ortiz, not a bad start here. He lost 2 runs over the course of 5 innings as Will Benson provides 2 home runs, 4th and 5th of the campaign, as his other home run that comes off of Hunter Gaddis, who gives up a home run in his inning work. Kobe Allard, 2 innings out of the bullpen scoreless, but for Cincinnati, you had Andrew Abbott beyond it in this one. 5 scoreless innings, did jack up his pitch count, so you saw quite a bit of the bullpen as Luis May, he gives up a run in 2/3 inning, but Scott Barlow, Emilio Pagan, Tony Santillan all on his scoreless inning, and then you had Taylor Rogers getting out of the bullpen scoreless. You had no scoring out there in Philadelphia. The Phillies, they get a 1-0 win over Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens, a complete game loss. He gives up 1 run over the course of 8 innings. He did his part, and that's a big reason why I faded him in this spot, because the schlubs around him are just doing absolutely nothing whatsoever. As Mick Abel, he makes his MLB debut. 9 punch-outs in 6 scoreless innings. They made him look like Cy Young. Orion Kirkering, Matt Strom, and Jordan Romano all in his scoreless inning. No Jose Alvarado, by the way, for the Phillies. He's now suspended for performance-enhancing drugs, so that's great. Apparently, you use a men's weight loss system, so yay verily there, and yay verily for the Seattle Mariners being able to go on the road, get a win over the San Diego Padres, 6-1 the final. Certainly, we'll talk more Mariners with our good friend Curtis Rogers on the flip side, but Randy Arozarena gets a 6th home run in the campaign off of Michael King, who was a little bit shaky in this one. 4 runs, 3 of which weren't given up by King, and 5 1/3 innings. Yuki Matsui, he does not get a single out of the bullpen, walks 3, gives up 2 runs, and then from there, Alec Jacob, he and Wandy Peralta both landed scoreless inning. Sean Reynolds, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and lone run of the game for the Padres comes in the first inning. Leadoff home run off the bat of Fernando Tatis Jr., 12th home run of the season. That comes out of Brian Wu, who from there would hunker down. He gives up just that home run in 7 innings of work. Carlos Vargas, Edward Bazardo, they provide a scoreless inning to be able to get the job done out there. The Royals have been a good under team, 31 under, 16 overs, and a push, and they take it to the St. Louis Cardinals 2-1 the final. So yet another under, as you had a combined 21 hits in this game, and for the St. Louis Cardinals, they leave 13 men on base. Matthew Liberatore, tough luck, no decision. 1 run allowed in 6 innings. Chris Roycroft gives up a run in an inning. Jojo Romero, scoreless inning of his own, and lone run for the St. Louis Cardinals. Home run by Alec Burleson off of Michael Wacha, 4th home run of the season. No dying Pac-Man voice for Michael Wacha as he gives up that solo home run in 5 innings of work. From there, Daniel Lynch, John Schreiber both provide a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Lucas Thursage, 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and Carlos Estevez, he's able to land a scoreless inning, and being able to land quite a few scoreless innings as well. How about the Diamondbacks and the Rockies? Just a 5th loss out of the 38 losses of the Rockies as by 1 run. 1-0 the final as Chase Dollander not pitched too bad in this one. Solo home run allowed in 4 2/3 innings. Going deep was Kital Marte of the Marte Parte. 6th home run season. From there, 2 1/3 innings scoreless out of a surprise guy in Ryan Rolison, and then a scoreless inning of Tyler Kinley. And for Arizona, they were really able to get a good start out of Merrill Kelly. 11 punch-outs in 7 innings, so 7-11. He's always open to be able to give you production. And Kevin Ginkel, Shelby Miller, they're both able to end a scoreless inning of their own. For the LA Angels, they go on the road and they do get the job done against the Dodgers. This by kind of 6-4. And the Dodgers have been one of your better over teams in all baseball. 27 overs to 20 unders. And for the LA Dodgers, they did a nice job of getting into this Angels bullpen. As Yusei Kikuchi, I say he had a good start, giving up a run in 5 2/3 innings. But from there, Brock and Roll Burke, he gives up 2 runs in 2/3 an inning. And Sean Anderson gives up a run in 2 2/3 innings. As he does allow a home run to Will Smith. Got jiggy with it for his 4th home run campaign. But for the LA Dodgers, you had Tony Gonsolin not have it in this one. Gives up a pair of bombs. 4 runs over the course of 4 innings for the Angels going deep. Taylor Ward, 12th home run season. Zach Neto, his 7th, and then Travis d'Arnaud off of Anthony Banda. He would get his 1st home run of the campaign. As for Banda, allows that home run in his 2 innings of work. Lou Trevino, 2 scoreless innings, and Luis Garcia, he gives up a run in an inning of work as well. But for the LA Dodgers, just 5 hits in this one. So the Angels, they sweep that series against the LA Dodgers on the road. Pretty impressive stuff there, and pretty impressive what we're seeing out of the San Francisco Giants, and they're pitching 3-2. They take it to the Athletics. As for the A's, you had a pretty solid start out. Jeffrey Springs allows a home run over the course of 6 innings of work, as Eloy Ramos is able to get home run number 8 of the campaign. 6 2/3 innings, I should say, for Springs, as Justice Turner and out of the bullpen scoreless. Same goes for Grant Holman, but Tyler Ferguson gives out 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. And for the Giants, you had a solid performance out of this bullpen, as Justin Verlander, limited just 4 innings, gives up 2 runs, but Spencer Bivens, 2 scoreless innings, and then Randy Rodriguez, Ryan Walker, Eric Miller, all able to close the door, all able to lend a scoreless inning for the Milwaukee Brewers. They do a nice job of being able to take it to the Minnesota Twins by a count of 5-2. As for Zebby Matthews, first start of the season, very suspect, 4 runs allowed over the course of 3 innings, but Cole Sands, 2 scoreless innings, Brock and Roll Stewart along Justin Topa, both on the scoreless inning before Oriel Alcala gives up a run out of the bullpen in his inning of work. You did have Royce Lewis be able to get his 1st home run on the campaign. He's been rough since coming off the injury list, but he goes deep off of Freddie Peralta. For Peralta, allows that home run over the course of his 5 innings of work. Jared Koenig gives up a run in an inning as well, but Evner Uribe, Nick Mears, along Trevor Miguel, they're all able to give a scoreless inning. And for the Detroit Tigers, they're able to give you a 3-2 win over the Toronto Blue Jays. As for the Jays, just not a lot of power for the team in general. They go 2 of 12 with men in scoring position, and Jose Barrios was pretty rock solid. 2 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. Mason Fluharty does give up a run in 2/3 of an inning, and that was the difference, as Yimi Garcia scoreless inning, Braden Fisher 1 1/3 inning scoreless. But for the Detroit Tigers, Jackson Jobe, good start here. 2 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. John Brebbia, Brant Turner, they combine for a scoreless inning, and Tommy Canley, Wolvest, they're both able to supply that scoreless inning. And then on Sunday Night Baseball, it was the New York Yankees getting the job done 8-2 over the New York Mets. If you, like me, had the under. Pete Alonso's throwing error was very costly in this one, as for David Peterson, great name, 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in 6 innings. He was pretty solid. Oscar Brisbane, he was able to give you a scoreless inning, and then Ryan Stanek, he gives up 4 runs, but only 1 of which was earned in a 1/3 of an inning. Genesis Cabrera tries to hold on some inherited runners, gives up 2 runs over the course of 2/3 of an inning, as the grand slam hit by Cody Bellinger, 7th home run of the season, he was able to get that off of Cabrera, and that was all set up by the error that was made by Pete Alonso out there in the field. Meanwhile, for Max Fried, 2 runs allowed in 6 innings, that raises his ERA to a $1.29, and then Jonathan Loaisiga, Devin Williams, Tim Hill from there, all able to end a scoreless inning. If you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it has been a bit of an underwhelming season, and it very much has been very underwhelming last 7 days. 53 unders to 33 overs. That is north of 61.5% to the under, with favorites having a bit of a struggle, 49 and 42 on the money line over the last 7 days. Overall for the season, favorites still hitting at north of 59% at 409 and 283. But if you're looking at the under rate thus far this season, right around about 52.9%, 351 unders to 313 overs. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Sunday. Now let's take a look at what we're getting out there in the AL West, what we saw with the Baltimore Orioles, and so much more, as we'll talk with our good friend Curtis Rogers of 710 Seattle Sports. He is their pre- and post-game host for the Mariners games, and he's joining me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and it's always great to be joined by this man as we've got Curtis Rogers aboard. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at this amazing game that we all know and love of baseball. He is the pre- and post-game host for the Seattle Mariners over at 710 Seattle Sports. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at A Kid From Kent, along with Instagram. And Curtis, it's always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Greg, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I love this time of year. There's something for everybody going on, and we're in the throes of the baseball season. We're past the quarter mark of the year, and we're starting to see some teams maybe show their true colors. I know we're not to the Memorial Day holiday yet. That's kind of usually a line of demarcation, but getting a good read on maybe who some of the good teams are and definitely who some of the bad teams are.
Oh, yes, and I think that that's been the big theme of this season because we've seen consistencies and inconsistencies, but the one thing that has been consistent is there a worse team that we've ever seen in baseball than the Colorado Rockies?
I don't think so, and we have a really fun game we like to play in our broadcast booth here between play-by-play guys, between producers, between field reporters. Can you name 5 Rockies? It varies week to week. What's insane is that you still have guys like German Marquez and Antonio Senzatella who are there and have been there forever and ever. But it's like, what do they even bring to the table anymore? Both those guys are clearly washed. Chris Bryant is washed. I mean, it is all bad. They have no hope going for them at any point. Like, you look at their farm system, there's nothing. You look at their major league roster, there's nothing. I feel so bad for Rockies fans because, you know, we know what that franchise can look like when things are going good. And, you know, they've had some pretty talented cores of teams over the years, but it feels like they are about as far removed as you can possibly be from some of those great teams that we have seen over the last 30 years or so.
Oh, I am right there with you. It is absolutely rough what we've seen out there, and I don't think that the Rockies warrant any more time on this podcast because that's just so bad, except for if you want to bet against them, then I encourage you to just continue to bet against them because it has been the gift that keeps on giving. But how about if we instead talk a little bit more about this American League, and how about a bad team in the Baltimore Orioles, and what do you make out of them canning their manager and Brandon Hyde over the weekend, and then them promptly losing 2 games at home to the Washington Nationals after they make that move?
Yeah, it feels like Brandon Hyde was a fall guy. I don't put
Fire Mike Elias.
Exactly. I don't put him as the sole person responsible for the 15 and 28 start that they got off to, because clearly, I mean, after the firing, 2 blowout losses to the Nationals, doesn't look like it was his fault at all for the season getting off to the horrible start that it got off to. I think it was just an offseason of inactivity for Baltimore that has led them to where they are. And also, it's a big risk looking at the amount of young players that they have. There's a lot of volatility to young players. Yes, they have tremendous talent offensively with a lot of those guys, you know, Jackson Holiday, Kobe May, Jordan Westberg, all those guys who are young and you could potentially be big league, you know, significant big league contributors years down the road. But right now, I mean, it is really tough sledding for them. I kind of also look at the regression of Adley Rutschman, and it's been really since last year's second half that Adley Rutschman has not been the same kind of offensive force that a lot of people expected he would be. I mean, he was one of the game's brightest stars following his rookie season, and ever since then, it has been just a slide of production for him to where he is not the kind of player that he was just a couple of years ago. I wonder how concerning that might be to the Orioles right now as well. And then you got to also wonder about the injuries to Grayson Rodriguez. And then also you didn't bring back Corbin Burns, who, I mean, Burns has not been as lights out as he normally has been, but again, that's an ace level pitcher that you don't have on your roster anymore. And you only got 1 season's worth of production out of him. I look at Brandon Hyde as a fall guy. I don't think it was his fault at all. He's partially to blame, but I don't think it's his fault. I don't think he is the number 1 guy to blame for the Orioles' 15-30 start.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that it's gone too far, the hate for Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias. He should not have a job right now based on what that offseason was. As a man that should always be having a job is Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, joining me on the Baseball Betting Show. And one of the big surprises for me this year has been the Seattle Mariners offense, like just applying runs after runs. They're coming off of a nice series win against the San Diego Padres. And just what do you make out of them right now? And really the hierarchy of the AL West, where it just feels so different with this year. The Astros taking a little bit of a slide, and for the Seattle Mariners, their run production has really been shocking, in my opinion.
It has been, and it's been a lot different in terms of the production and how they've gotten it in the 45 games that they've played now. It has not been just kind of waiting around for the solo home run, waiting around for the 2-run home run, the 3-run shot, the grand slam. It's been a much more sustained effort. We saw on Sunday in the 4th inning, they played 3 runs on 5 consecutive base hits. Really impressive effort by them, just kind of passing the baton to one guy after another. And it hasn't really just been one guy. Yes, Cal Raleigh is among the league leaders in home runs. He's got 15 right now. But it's been guys like Rowdy Tellez, who has hit a lot of big home runs this season. It's obviously been Jorge Polanco, who's starting to cool down a little bit from the incredible start that he got off to, but he still has an OPS over 1,000 right now. Julio Rodriguez. Yes, the Julio Rodriguez total numbers, not necessarily kind of what we expect from him. But believe it or not, this is the best start he has ever gotten off to in his career. We're talking about 6-7 home runs to this point in the year. He's usually a slow starter, so it's good to see him get a little more offensive production early on, maybe not to the level that a lot of people will be comfortable with, but I think he and the Mariners right now are feeling pretty good about it. I know we had Justin Hollander on our station up here, Mariners GM, a few days ago, and he mentioned how Julio is still on pace for a 6-WAR season. He's not worried at all about what Julio can do here in 2025. So I think this Mariners team offensively, it has been a really well-rounded effort, and they've needed it because the pitching staff just brutalized with injuries. Logan Gilbert on the IL, George Kirby on the IL. It looks like Kirby could be back within the next week or two, but then Bryce Miller also going on the IL this last week. He's going to be sat down for 15 days. 3 of your 5 starters in your starting rotation going to be out for at least a little bit here. Good to see the Mariners offense pick up the production to kind of ease the burden of those losses.
Yep, it certainly has been. And Cal Raleigh, you mentioned him being so good. Dylan Moore has been able to give you more this year. And J.P. Crawford doesn't have for a lot of power, but guy that has been able to move the line as well. And when it comes to the Mariners, just how do you think that they are just overall stacking themselves up in this AL West? Because I did mention it. The Astros, they just don't look like their normal selves. The Rangers have been surprisingly really good with the pitching, but they've been shockingly awful at the plate. The A's are coming off of quite a few losses in a row. And then you have the LA Angels, who they swept the LA Dodgers, but I think that was very much a one-off and not a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I don't think the Angels will overtake the Dodgers as the most feared team in baseball just based off of this weekend's results. It also kind of goes to show how early on in the season and still
it's
to this
baseball,
point,
Susan.
Exactly. You can chalk up any old result to just randomness, and I think that's more of what we saw this weekend from the Angels over the Dodgers. But you're right, the AL West, no team has really done much to kind of assert themselves yet. I know the Mariners at 26-19 are in first place, but heading into this week, I mean, they had just about a half-game lead, I think, on the Rangers, so they put a little bit more distance between themselves and Texas. I think the Mariners at full strength might be the best team in this division, especially if you can get this starting rotation looking like, I would say maybe like 80 to 85% of what it was a year ago. I don't know if we're going to see Bryce Miller be as effective as what he was during the 2024 season, even after he comes off the injured list. But I would anticipate Logan Gilbert coming back and looking like the same Logan Gilbert. I would anticipate George Kirby coming back. It sounds like those 2 injuries haven't necessarily been as serious as the Mariners had initially thought they were. So hopefully, at least for Seattle's sake, they get sort of the same amount of production from at least Gilbert and Kirby. We had Scott Braun of Foul Territory on. He was like, you got to be mindful of the fact that the Mariners have got 2 ace-level pitchers right now if you're sort of handicapping the rest of the American League West season. The A's are a team that I've got my eye on just based off of their offense. They've got a lot of talent offensively. Jacob Wilson has been thorn in everybody's side this season. Brent Rooker has been Brent Rooker. Lawrence Butler has been Lawrence Butler. They're a fun team, and I think they're going to be a lot better here over the next couple of years. Unfortunately, they don't have a real home to play in or a real fan base to play to, but I think they're a team definitely on the rise, but I don't think they're going to be there quite yet in the AL West. As for the Astros, they're just kind of looming as they always do. I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to put it all together. We got the news today, Hayden Wesneski is going to be out for the season. So there's another starting pitcher that they will be down. I think right now the Astros are just a team that until they get healthy, I don't think you can really put a whole lot of effort into viewing them as a contender right now.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think that it's going to be a little bit difficult to get there with the Astros, especially with the way that the offense just does not look like its normal self. As joining me on the show, we do have Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And just when you take a look at this great game of baseball, we've seen quite a few streaks, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Minnesota Twins. What do you make out of those two teams? Because it's always intriguing when you get on these teams on these very hot streaks. And I don't know about you, but even though the Minnesota Twins were able to go on that big run, I still have my question marks with them, especially with being in the same division as the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the climb that they've had to do here, winning 13 in a row. They went from fourth place in the division to fourth place in the division. I mean, and it's been a really tough road for them to get back to respectability here. And credit to them for stringing together as many wins in a row as they have. I mean, it's been a phenomenal run that they have gone on, and I'm sure it's doing wonders for clubhouse morale, especially coming off of an offseason, another offseason where their front office hasn't really made an effort to spend, especially after you get Carlos Correa a couple off seasons ago. They were kind of like, oh, maybe the Twins are going to kind of change their mindset when it comes to all this. I know they have a team sale going on as well, so maybe that has kind of hamstrung their ability to spend here the last couple of years. They've obviously got talent offensively, but to me, they have kind of always been lacking like that A-plus superstar, super duper star kind of player. And I don't know if they have what it takes to overcome what Cleveland and what Kansas City and what Detroit are. I think Minnesota is definitely going to be competitive, and I think the AL Central is going to be a competitive division this season. I just don't see it from Minnesota over the course of 162, but credit to them for being able to go on a run like this. Second straight year they've gone on a run like this at about this time. They got off to a really slow start last year and rattled off, I want to say it was like 10 or 11 in a row to get back into things. But again, they weren't there at the end of the season. And as for the Cardinals, I think what helps them out is just how wide open that National League Central is at the moment. I think they're in a division where nobody is a clear-cut contender at the moment. I think the Cubs are the best team in that division, but the Cardinals definitely hanging around. I think they can potentially make some noise here. I think they're going to need to make some additions as well, just based off of what their roster is currently constructed like. But good on them for being able to kind of throw the book out on what we all thought they were going to be this season. We all kind of thought it was going to be a lost year for the Cardinals, which is rarely said about that franchise. So good to see them get back into things too in the National League Central.
Yep, it certainly is going to be a fun NL Central with the way that the Cubs have been generating offense, but bullpen is a little bit suspect. The Brewers are just an inconsistent team in general. The Pittsburgh Pirates are, right now, they are Paul Skeens and nothing else. And then the Redlegs, how about them? They've been an interesting team as well. So we've got a lot of fun out there in baseball right now. Curtis, you're doing an incredible job of being able to gauge it all, doing a great job with the Seattle Mariners pre- and post-game hosting duties. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, really good stuff. Like I mentioned, there's a conversation with Mariners GM Justin Hollander. You can find that at seattlesports.com. He dives into all the Mariners injuries that they've got to their starting pitching staff, and also talking about some Jorge Polanco love, Dylan Moore love, Julio Rodriguez, all good stuff. It's at seattlesports.com. New edition of Extra Innings, our off-day show, which was posted on Thursday of last week, so really good content there. And then, yeah, we're rocking pre- and post-game show all throughout. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @akidfromkent. Greg, always happy to hop on this podcast, talk some ball with you, and look forward to our next chat.
Absolutely. Curtis, one of the best in the business of gauging this great game of baseball. Every single time he joins me, lends such amazing insight. So big thanks, Curtis, for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And coming up next, it is that time to podcast. I give you picks and analysis out of the game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back your lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Curtis Rogers. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. Take a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. Did so once again today. So big thanks, Curtis, for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started with 951, 952 on the betting board. By the way, no day games. Good grief. But the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. That road, they're facing off against the Pittsburgh Pirates as Mitch Keller goes for the Buccos and Nick Lodolo is on the bump for the Reds. And the Reds do find themselves anywhere between minus 117 to minus 125 favorites, and between plus 105 to plus 108 is that number on Pittsburgh. 8 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110. And I set the Reds at a minus 124. So that minus 118 or so, I'm going to be willing to take that money line for Nick Lodolo. He's been pretty rock solid thus far this season. He's been able to really cut down on the walks, giving up just 1.5 walks per 9 innings. He's only giving up 1 home run per 9, 3.42 ERA. Feel like you've been more around about a 3.75, 3.80. So he's been able to do a nice job. And for Mitch Keller, always a guy that has been much better at home rather than on the road. Been a little bit of a reverse split this season, but that's in a small sample size for his career. 4.11 home ERA with 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. 5.05 road ERA with 1.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings. But here's the big thing with the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're averaging just a hair over 3 runs per game this season. They have been absolutely awful at the plate, and there's just no signs of things turning around for them, as really the only man that's putting bat to ball for them is Oneil Cruz, who's been able to give you 8 home runs. He's really not doing a great job of moving the line. He's hitting about a 225, but still north of a 340 on base, so you'll accept that. Joey Bart has been able to give you a little bit at the plate as well, 386 on base, and Brian Reynolds, is up to 6 home runs, but he's hitting just a 203 or so, as you've got a lot of guys on this roster. They're hitting at 210 or lower. Reynolds, Emmanuel Valdez, Tommy Pham, Henry Davis when he's gotten his opportunities here, Trolos, guys like this, so that has been rough. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it's not like this is some sort of great bullpen or anything like that. David Benhart got sent down to the minor league level earlier this season. You've got Chase Shogert, who's honestly been pretty okay, along Tim Mesa. They've both been able to spy a sub-3 ERA, but Joey Wentz has been posting up north of a 4.6 ERA. Caleb Ferguson, Tanner Rainey, these guys have been very suspect. And for the Reds, this team is hovering right around 10th in the big leagues in terms of their own bullpen ERA. Got quite a few guys have come in and have been able to do a solid job. Graham Ashcraft has been a nice long guy for this team. Ryan Richardson has all of a sudden been able to give you some good innings. Tony Santillan, Taylor Rogers, guys like this. And for the Reds, it has been a little bit of a hit or miss lineup, as they've actually been one of the best road teams in terms of run production, but much of that is due to the 24 runs that they scored a few weeks ago on the Baltimore Orioles on Charlie Morton. But Ellie De La Cruz back up to give you 8 home runs, 16 stolen bases. He's been rock solid. And while Matt McClain has 6 home runs, along to Austin Hayes. For McClain, hitting just a $183. Austin Hayes, by the way, coming back in the lineup. That's big because he's hitting above a 300, along with Jose Trevino, who's been great at the plate. You've had Gavin Lux give you about a 380 or so on base. And Santiago Espinal, all of a sudden, has been rock solid along TJ Friedel in terms of moving line. I think that this is going to be a nice solid pitcher, so we'll hear some. I told 7.6. I like the under, and I'm willing to lay it with the Reds up to a minus 124 on that money line. 953, 954 on the betting board. The Cubs hit the road. They're facing off against the Miami Marlins. Edward Cabrera is on the bump for the Fish, and Ben Brown goes for the Cubs. Cubs are anywhere between minus 162 to minus 170 favorites. Plus 143 to plus 150 is that number on Miami. 9 is the total. Under is minus 115. Over is minus 105. And I did set my total at an 8.7. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on this total under with Ben Brown. I really like what he's been able to show me thus far this season. One of the better strikeout guys you're going to find in all baseball, as he's been supplying north of 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Can sometimes get a little bit wild in terms of command. That's why he has knocked himself out of a few starts early thus far this season, but still has been able to give you at least 5 innings at each out of his last 3 starts. 4.75 ERA, but a 3.32 fielding dependent with a 10.8 strikeouts at 3.5 walks per 9 innings. And for Edward Cabrera, he's got really good raw stuff. He just needs to be able to hone it in. The walks have always been an issue. His 4 walks per 9 innings this year, by the way, is actually a career low. He's got a 4.97 fielding dependent with a 5.52 ERA, so he is someone that is starting to improve a little bit, but you know what, it's still been shaky for him. Good news is he has given up a combined 3 runs in his last 2 starts against the White Sox and the Athletics, so take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. And for Miami. You do have two guys that have been able to do a solid job of being able to give you some power. Kyle Stowers along with Matt Mervis. Mervis has been able to give you 7+ home runs, and then Stowers, he's been able to lead the way. He's giving you 10 bombs. For Stowers, he's giving you 382 on base, which has been rock solid, and you're not getting that out of Matt Mervis, who's currently hitting $181, and just in general, this has been a shaky lineup. Jesus Sanchez, who has come off the injury list, he's only been able to hit about a 220 with not a lot of power. Augustin Ramirez actually has 5 home runs in his first 80 or so at bats, 340 on base. I like seeing that. Xavier Edwards has been a little bit in and out of the lineup over the last few days, but he's been able to about a 265, good at being able to move the line, and Javier Sonja has been able to do a nice job of being able to find a way on base as well, but overall, you're just not getting a lot of power out of this team. And then on the flip side for the Chicago Cubs, this has been the number 1 scoring team in the National League this season, and the big thing for the Chicago Cubs is Pete Crow Armstrong, 12 home runs this far this season. I did not see that coming, hitting at 290, and I mean, you've got 3 other guys, Dansby Swanson, Kyle Tucker, along with C.A. Suzuki, all give between 10 and 11 home runs this season. You've got Swanson along Suzuki, okay with the guards are on base. Kyle Tucker more like a 375 on base, but Carson Kelly under the radar. I recognize that he doesn't play every day, but north of a 4 on base, 8 home runs and 91 at bats. Ian Happ, guys like this are moving line now. For the Cubs, they're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA, but they have gotten back Daniel Palencia along with a few guys like a Drew Pomeranz that have been able to really make a nice imprint on this team. They've been able to find out their just bullpen in general, with Brad Keller being able to be a relatively solid long guy when needed as well. Even with Porter Hodge having his issues, it feels like he's starting to build himself back up. And for the Miami Marlins, this has been a bottom 6 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've been able to get some good production out of Anthony Bender, who's been able to supply about a 2 or so ERA, and then you've had Cade Gibson as a little bit of a long guy along with Rodney Enriquez be relatively solid. But when you do get into the likes of a Lake Bakar, Anthony Veziano, George Soriano, you got a lot of guys that are just untrustworthy in this bullpen, and I do think that for the Chicago Cubs, they are going to be able to do a solid job of getting to Edward Cabrera, but I do think that with Ben Brown having the propensity to knock himself out of starts early, that does leave for a little bit of trepidation, and I do think that Edward Cabrera is really nice stuff. If I can get anything north of plus 150, I will be taking a shot on the fish on the money line, as I set my money line at a plus 151, and here at the 9, I do like the under. 955, 956 on the betting board. The Philadelphia Phillies are on the road against Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland goes for the Rockies, and Cadiz Defer Sanchez is on the bump for the Phillies, and the Phillies are between minus 260 to minus 278 favorites, between plus 230 to plus 236 is that number on Colorado. 10 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. If you're looking to lay a run half with the Phillies, that's at currently about a minus 175 to a minus 180. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 227, and I'd put the Phillies at a minus 355. Like, despite the fact that they have to elevate Coors Field and everything like that, it's just a case where I want no part of the Colorado Rockies, despite the fact that Kyle Freeland should be doing for a little bit of positivity. To the credit of Kyle Freeland, he's not getting taken yard too much this season. He's always been a relatively good command pitcher in general, so I do think that his 6.15 ERA is going to be going downward. He's got a 330 fielding dependent, 7 strikeouts, 0.8 home runs, 1.6 walks per 9 innings, so I do believe that he's going to get a little bit better, though. He's just been getting lambasted recently, 6+ hits allowed in each of his last 4 starts. Meanwhile, for Christopher Sanchez, he does have the big home and road splits as well. He's been posting up an ERA that's been about 1.6 points higher when he's been away from home rather than when he has been at home since the beginning of the 2024 campaign, but so he's getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings this season, 291 ERA, 365 fielding dependent. He is backed up by a bullpen that's a little bit shaky. Jose Alvarado for the next 80 games is not necessarily too tremendous, which means that Matt Strahm is really your lone, shall we say, trustworthy bullpen piece, because you've got a Ryan Kirkering who's really been struggling this season. Tanner Banks, Jose Ruiz, guys like this, they are a little bit suspect, so they're going to need to get some production from that bullpen, and I do think that sooner rather than later, the Phillies get a bit more online in terms of power numbers, as Kyle Schwarber's been amazing. 15 home runs, 390 on base. You got Bryce Harper who's been able to give you 7 home runs, and he's starting to pick it up with his average, back up to a 375 on base, but aside those two guys, nobody else is giving you north of 5 bombs, as you've got Max Kepler who's been able to give you 5 home runs, but isn't doing a great job of getting on base now. Bottom of the lineup, Armando Sosa, Yohan Rojas, they've been pretty solid in terms of getting on base, and Trey Turner, though he has just 2 home runs, 350 on base, good base stealer, so you do like that. And for the Rockies. The good news is they are better at the plate when they're at home rather than away from home. They entered into the day on a Saturday averaging just 2.2 runs per game. They've been able to very much improve that, and Hunter Goodman has been able to supply the team with some power, 7 home runs, north of a 350 on base going into yesterday, but you've got so many guys that have just been, well, so rocky this far this season, as you've got the likes of Brenton Doyle, Michael Taglia, Ryan McMahon, Jacob Stallings, Adele Amorder, along with Sean Borchard, Alan Trejo. You just go down the list of guys and get 214 or worse. Chris Bryant has only played in 11 games this year. He's a big giant waste of money. And for the Rockies, I will say, the world's worst bullpen does not belong to them, as good news is you've got a few teams like the Washington Nationals and the LA Angels out there. It's still a shaky bullpen, but Seth Alverson has been able to give you a sub-4 ERA. Jimmy Erget has been relatively okay in relief along Zach Ognos as well, so that's something that they're able to build off of. But man, I do think that they are going to get tattooed here by a Philadelphia Phillies team that's going to be able to show their power, and I do think that they bust out here, so I set my total at a 10.3. At the 10, I like the over, and I'm going to be willing to take the Philadelphia Phillies personally. Probably going to be willing to lay minus 2.5 runs when that gets to a little bit of better juice. 957, 958 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks at the road face-off against the LA Dodgers. Brandon Hyde is going to be on the bump for Arizona, and right now it reads to be determined on the Los Angeles Dodgers side of things, so this is a game that a lot of places have off the board. Before this was listed at minus 140 to minus 148, with the Dodgers being the favorite, plus 122 to plus 127, that number on Arizona, and then a total of 9.5, with the over being at a minus 105 and the under being at a minus 115. Now, it was looking like Landon Knack was going to be able to get the start here for the Dodgers, and right now that's what all the sites are reading, so I handicap this as if it is going to be Mr. Knack, and with Landon Knack, I did set him at a minus 148, so if we go to a minus 145, I'm going to be willing to lay that money line on the Dodgers. Recognize that this past series against the Los Angeles Angels, very much less than savory for them, and Knack does not actually have the world's greatest advanced numbers. 4.89 ERA with a fielding dependent more around about a 4.35, but that said, he is getting his strikeout stuff back up. He's been able to give you darn near 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. The 3.9 walks per 9 innings, a little bit suspect, but he's made 5 appearances thus far this season. Very much a mixed bag. He's given up 2 runs or fewer in 3 of them. He's given up a 5 spot in the other 2, and in the spots where he gave up a 5 spot, won less than 5 innings in both of them. Meanwhile, for the Arizona Diamondbacks, for Brandon Hyde, he has really been able to put it together this far this season. I've always liked the way that he doesn't walk a lot of guys this far this season. 2.3 walks per 9 innings. He has given up the deep ball, though. He's got a 4.42 fielding dependent, giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Is darn near 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's a low for him, and he's given up 3 runs or more in 3 out of his last 4 starts. Now he faces off against the Dodgers lineup that, aside from Sunday, really the weakness that they had in that series against the LA Angels was their pitching, not so much their hitting. And for this Dodgers team, I think that they're going to get ignited once again with Shohei Ohtani being able to give you 12 plus home runs. He's been able to provide north of a 400 on base, and then you've got Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, both of these guys being able to give you north of a 425 on base. Freeman has been getting a home run every about 10 or 11 at bats this season, and Andy Pages has been really good at being able to supply for the team. 9 home runs, hitting above a 280. Tommy Edman, he's back in the fold as well, so you like that, even with Michael Conforto, Max Muncy having their issues. All in all, this has been a very good lineup. And then on the flip side for Arizona, they're a top 2 team with regards to their offense at the beginning of the 2024 season for Arizona. You've really been able to have Corbin Carroll come alive for this team as well. He last season, I'm just fully convinced, was injured. He's been able to give this team 13 plus home runs this season. He's doing a nice job providing about a 355 on base. Lourdes Gurriel needs to get online a little bit more. He's been able to give you 7 home runs, but hitting a 230 with about a 260 or so on base. And Eugenio Suarez, not necessarily great in terms of being able to get on base, but 14 home runs, you're certainly going to take that. And plus, you've got plenty of guys like Pavin Smith, Josh Naylor, hitting a neighbor of a 300. Now for Arizona, bullpen has been very shaky without AJ Puck in the fold, and they've had Justin Martinez deal with a little bit of an injury as well. You've got 2 relatively good long guys in Shelby Miller along Jalen Beeks. Both of these guys have been able to supply a sub 355 ERA. Juan Barrio, though, is someone that has been relatively suspect. When you go to some of these long guys like a Bryce Jarvis and company, has not necessarily been so great for them. They're just now getting back Kendall Graveman too, and for the LA Dodgers, this has been a unit that has been dealing with quite a few injuries in that bullpen as well, as you're so without Bruce Starter Gradwell, who just always feels like he's injured. Blake Trine is back on the injured list as well, but that said, you've been able to have some relatively solid performances out of some of these guys like a Ben Kasparis, who's been a relatively good long guy. Jack Dreyer has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. I have to like what Tanner Scott has been able to show this team as well with a sub-2 ERA. Evan Phillips, when he's been off the injured list, has been very solid, but he has been off and on injured all season long, and he's back on the injured list, so that's a bit of an issue for you. But that said, I do think that Nick going to be able to give a relatively solid start, a long fought, so I'm going to be willing to take the Dodgers up to a minus 148 on that money line, and I do like the under semi-total 9.2. 959, 960 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays do play us the Houston Astros. Colton Gordon is on the bump for the Astros, and Ryan Pepiot is on the bump for the Rays. The Rays are minus 135 favorites, between plus 115 to plus 122 is that number on Houston. 9 is the total, under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105, and for Pepiot, set he and the Rays at a minus 131. Right now, we don't necessarily have the dime lines out. I'm thinking that once we get the dime lines out, we could get down to a minus 130. That would put me on the Rays on the money line for Ryan Pepiot. It's been a up and down season for him, to say the least. His swing and miss stuff has not necessarily been what it has been in past seasons, as currently in terms of strikeouts per 9 innings, he's down to 8. That's a career low for him, but that said, 3 walks per 9 innings, not necessarily too bad there. 393 ERA, the 471 fielding dependent is born out of the fact that he's now given up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. That's been a little bit shaky for him, but has a lot of combined 3 home runs in his last 4 starts, so he seems to be honing it in just a skosh there. And for Colton Gordon, this is going to be his second career start for the Houston Astros, and for Colton Gordon, when he made his MLB debut, it wasn't great, it wasn't terrible. He goes 4 1/3 innings in that one, he gives up 3 runs, was scattering around quite a few hits with 7 hits, and if you look at what he was able to do for the AAA Space Cowboys of Sugar Land, he was posting up a sub-3 ERA in the PCL. Now, I recognize that it was a small sample size in the PCL, but you do have to like to see that. He's always been good in terms of just not allowing a lot of cheapies, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings at the AAA level last season, and he's going to be backed up by a relatively good bullpen, as you've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Josh Hader, who'll be able to give you a sub-3 ERA in that bullpen. You've had Steven Okert do a rock-solid job as well. And for the Houston Astros, the offense is starting to build itself back up just a little bit, but they're anywhere between average and slightly below average in terms of run production, because just don't have a lot of power on the team. Isaac Paredes leading the way with 7 home runs. He is supplying a 372 on base as well. And then Jake Myers, along Jeremy Pena, both give you between about a 350 to a 360 on base. Pena is up to 6 home runs this season. Jose Altuve looks a lot at the place, sub 300 on base, 4 home runs this season, so he needs to give you a bit more of something. Yordan Alvarez being on the injured list has hurt them, and then you've had someone like a Brandon Rodgers just not be able to move the line when he's gotten opportunities, and then flip side, you've got yourself a Tampa Bay Rays lineup that it is one of the bottom 8 teams in baseball in terms of their run production. Not necessarily a lot of home run power, as you do have Junior Caminero, who's been able to give you 8 home runs, but he's also supplying a 266 on base. Brandon Lau, he's number 2 in terms of bombs with 7 bombs, but again, a 275 on base. And then you've got the guys that are able to move the line, like Jonathan Aranda has been able to give you about a 395 on base. Jose Calabrio, in a small sample size, about a 340 on base. Chandler Simpson has been able to 300, so you do have a few guys doing a solid job there, but the entirety of the catcher spot has been a giant issue for them. Taylor Walls continues to hit a 200 as well, but for the Tampa Bay Rays, once again, you've got one of the best Swiss Army knife bullpens out there in all baseball. So many of these guys, they're just able to give you a sub 340 ERA, as you've been able to have the likes of Pete Fairbanks, Garrett Clevenger, Manuel Rodriguez, Hunter Biggie, all do a nice job of being able to hold it down, and Eric Orze, who's been, I believe, a rookie, has been able to give you about a 1 ERA. So I do think that in the end, the Rays do have a little bit of the upper hand here. Both of these starters are a little bit suspect, so I did set my total 9.1 at the 9. I like the over, and I'm willing to lay up to a minus 130 on that Rays money line. 961, 962 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox play out the Seattle Mariners. Luis Castillo is on the bump for Seattle, and Davis Martin goes for the White Sox. It is a total over and under, both at minus 110 for Seattle. They're anywhere between minus 192 to minus 205 favorites, and between plus 170 to plus 178 is that number on the Southsiders, and I did set the Mariners on the money line at a minus 187. If you're looking to lay a run half with them, that is anywhere between about a minus 118 to a minus 120, and I'd be willing to go up to about a minus 118. I set mine at a minus 119 for Luis Castillo. It's been a little bit of a suspect season for him because his swing and miss stuff is way down. For Luis Castillo, when he came into the big leagues, he was always a guy that would be a more power pitcher, and now that he's getting a little bit more up there in years, he's down to in that neighborhood about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's experienced a velocity dip, but has done a good job in terms of being able to keep the ball in the yard. He's given up to 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, 365 ERA, 385 fielding independent, despite the 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and 0 or 1 runs allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts. So that has been nice to see. On the other side, you got a guy in Davis Martin who I believe that he's relatively okay for the Chicago White Sox. He's been able to hone it in. He's got his own 3.65 ERA, 4.25 fielding dependent as he's only getting about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. But that said, I do think that he's going to be able to go out there, give you a relatively good performance against a Seattle team that has been able to generate nearly 5.5 runs per game on the road. That is a top 3 mark in the American League for Seattle. They did it once again yesterday as they were able to do a nice job in terms of being able to move the line. J.P. Crawford at the top has been able to give you about a 3.75 on base. You saw Julio Rodriguez being a little bit shaky, but he's starting to generate a little bit of production. Big dumper Cal Raleigh, 14 plus home runs, 370 on base. Mitch Garver has been able to give you about a 350 on base in his small sample size as well. Even Luis Rivas is starting to hit above a 300 as well. So do like what I'm seeing there on the bullpen side of things for the Seattle Mariners. It's been a little bit up and down for them as I love Andres Munoz. He's been one of the best closers in all of baseball, and now you're getting Matt Brash into the fold as well. Gabe Spire has been able to give you sub 3.3 ERA, but when you get to Edward Bizardo, Carlos Vargas, guys like that, you feel bad about that. And then, Taylor Cicado just be a big disappointment this year. And for the Chicago White Sox, this is shock, surprise, not necessarily the most trustworthy bullpen in the big leagues. They tried out Mike Clevenger on the bullpen to begin the season. That was not great. Now, Mike Vasil has been able to give you a sub 2 ERA. Love what I'm seeing there, but now they land Tyler Gilbert and Frazier Allard on the injured list, so that means that you're going to be seeing more of Cam Bouger, Brandon Isaac, guys like this that have north of a 4 ERA. There's kicking the tires on Yodris Gomez, who I think has been on like 3 different teams here thus far this season, and for the Chicago White Sox, just absolutely nothing at the plate whatsoever. As Lennon Sosa has been able to about a 265, but Andrew Benintendi being on the injured list, that's hurt them. Miguel Vargas and his 6 home runs is right now leading the way for the team, and I always am a believer that sometimes when you're on a team that stinks seeps into you. We're seeing that with Luis Robert along with Andrew Vaughn. Both of these guys hitting a $184 for 5 home runs apiece. They just have not been great. Edgar Quiero, though, he's giving you about a 370 on base, so you'll gladly accept that. That said, for the White Sox, I think that they're going to have a tough time getting a lot on the board. I think they get to Luis Castillo for a little bit, but I do think that the Mariners and the way that they're producing runs on the road just a little bit too strong here, so I did set my total at 8.3. At the 8, I like the over, and at a minus 118 or better, I like that Mariners run line. 963, 964 on the betting board. It is the Cleveland Guardians, and they're going to be on the road facing off against the Minnesota Twins as Bailey Ober is on the bump for the Twinkies, and you got Logan Allen on the bump for Cleveland. Cleveland is a underdog of anywhere between plus 118 to a plus 125, minus 135 to a minus 142 is that number. Minnesota 7.5 is the total, over and under both at minus 110, and for the Twins, I did set their money line here at a minus 134. If you're taking a look at perhaps laying a run half with them, you're going to be finding that in the neighborhood about a plus 155 to a plus 158. And I honestly would look at the run line rather than the money line because I don't have a lot of faith in Logan Allen. Allen doesn't have the world's worst numbers thus far this season, as his ERA hovering in that neighborhood of a 370, but the fielding independence a 407, 4.4 walks and 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has done a great job of keeping the ball in the yard, giving up fewer than 0.75 home runs per 9 innings, and for Bailey Ober, career low 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, so I did set a bit of a higher total here at an 8.2. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that over for Bailey Ober. He's always been throughout his career relatively good at not giving up a lot of cheapies, giving up fewer than 2.5 walks per 9 innings, and all of a sudden we've been seeing this Minnesota Twins team really round into form with regards to their offense. They did end a scoreless streak with regards to their pitching at 34 innings, by the way, which I was very impressive by them, but Byron Buxton, 10 home runs, hitting about a 260 for the team. That is nice. That said, he's now on the injured list because of that collision that we saw in Baltimore a few days ago. Harrison Bader, in the meantime, he's going to be able to pick it up, move the line, give you about a 366 on base. Now, outside of Byron Buxton, you've only got really one other guy with north of 4 home runs this season. That would be Trevor Larnach, 7 bombs, about a 325 on base, but Ryan Jeffers has been able to pick it up. He's been able to give you about a 345 on base. Carlos Correa is still miserable this season, but it's been hitting a little bit better recently. Matt Wallner being injured has been hurting this team as well, but getting back Royce Lewis, that's something that you do like to see. And for the Minnesota Twins, this has been a bullpen that has been well above average as far this season. You do have Griffin Jax, who's been getting jacked up all season long, but how about the likes of Louis Varland, a really good closer in Yohan Duran, Justin Topa, all these guys who will be able to come in there, give you a sub-3 ERA. Brock and Roll Stewart, I think he'll be able to give you a little bit more moving forward. And Danny Kalum, I don't think is allowed a run this far this season. And for the Guardians, that used to be them. Last year, the Cleveland Guardians were number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They are right now in the bottom half of the big leagues as they kick the tires on Paul Sewald. He's currently on the injured list. Now, we'll say that Cade Smith along with Hunter Gaddis have been able to give you a sub 275 ERA, but instead they're trying out Matthew Festa, the former Minnesota Twins starter in the bullpen. He hasn't been too bad, but Jacob Junis is posting up right north of 4.3 ERA. Tim Aaron has been all over the place. Joey Cantillo, he's been intermittent. Manuel Clase has obviously been a lost cause, and for the Cleveland Guardians, this is a lineup that is very top-heavy, as you've got a good leadoff guy in Stephen Kwan, give you about a 375 on base. Jose Ramirez, after he had a little bit of issue like 2 to 3 weeks ago, he's back online, 9 home runs, give you about a 360 or so on base. Kyle Manzardo does give you 10 home runs, but hitting just a 221, you could use a little bit more average out of him. And then you've got the likes of a Bo Naylor, Nolan Jones, Brian Rocchio, Kenzie Noel, who are all hitting below the Mendoza line 200, really not getting a ton of power out of them. You have 6 home runs piece out of Bo Naylor along with Daniel Schneemann, but still you'd like to see a little bit more there. I do think that for the Minnesota Twins, they do a nice job of getting to the Guardians and what has been a suspect bullpen, so made my total an 8.2. I like the over, and I'm going to be willing to lay the run line here of the Twins getting a plus 150 or better. 965, 966 on the betting board. The Athletics play us the Los Angeles Angels. Jose Soriano is on the bum for the Avos, and JT Ginn and Juice is on the bum for the Athletics. And the A's do find themselves as between minus 118 to minus 125 favorites, plus 105 to plus 110. That number on Los Angeles sign is the total over and under, both at minus 110. And with regards to the total, I set mine at a 10.7. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. JT Ginn and Juice has been, well, giving you about a 625 fielding dependent. That's been a little bit less than tremendous. 461 ERA, allowing 2.6 home runs and 4.4 walks for 9 innings. And as we know out there in Sacramento, the ball's just been absolutely flying this far this season. And you've got 2 of the worst bullpens that you're going to find in all of baseball. Entering into the day on Sunday, both of these teams were in the bottom 3 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, with the Athletics 582 ERA and a 704 for the Angels. And if you're looking at the Athletics, while Mason Miller still has really good stuff, he's been a little bit shaky thus far this season. You've been able to have a few guys able to rise up in terms of that bullpen, like you've been able to have Justin Cerner be able to give you a sub 3 ERA. I've been liking what I've been seeing there. Michael Otons being on the injured list has been hurting them a skosh, but the likes of TJ McFarland Company just not getting the job done. Meanwhile, the lineup has very much been able to get the job done. Brent Rooker along Tyler Soderstrom, both 10 plus home runs apiece, with Soderstrom has been able to give you only about 1 home run over the last like 3.5 weeks, so he does need to get out of this little bit of a funk. But Jacob Wilson has been able to hit for north of a 330 for this team. Miguel Andujar doing a solid job, move line, getting on base, so he's been a little bit banged up. Lawrence Butler, he's been having his issues recently. He and JJ Bleday both give you about a 295 in terms of their on base, but overall this has been an A's team that has been above average in terms of their run production. And on the flip side for the Los Angeles Angels, this has been very much an all or nothing lineup this season. They're currently without Mike Trout, but if had Taylor Ward be able to step up, he's giving you 11 home runs, and Logan Hoppe 10 bombs. For Hoppe, really the lone of their home run hitters that's able to give you any sort of average whatsoever. He's hitting about a 255. Meanwhile, Taylor Ward is hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Even when Mike Trout was out there, he was hitting a $179. Kyron Paris, 6 home runs. He's giving you only about a 270 in terms of his on base. Jorge Soler, about a 297 on base, 6 home runs this far this season. Joe Adell setting fire to the rain with his $198 average. So these guys have been relatively rough. We'll say that Matthew Lugo, in his small sample size, hitting for well north of 300 with 3 home runs in his first 8 games. So you do like to see that, but for the Los Angeles Angels, where you don't want to see this bullpen in general, my goodness gracious, these guys have been awful. Among guys with at least 3 appearances thus far this season, nobody owns an ERA below 540. Like, every one of these names, Jose Fermin, Kenley Jansen, Brock Burke, Ryan Zephyrion, like, every one of them has been absolutely terrible thus far this season, and that's a big reason why I do think that the Athletics just put bat to ball in this game. I did set my number at a minus 163, so I'm looking at that A's money line, and I like the over set my total 10.7, 967, 968 on the betting board. The New York Mets hit the road. They're facing off against the Boston Red Sox. Hunter Dobbins, it's on the bump for the Sox, and Kodai Senga goes for the Mets. 9 is the total. Overs between minus 110 to a minus 115. Unders between minus 105 to a minus 110. Mets are between minus 136 to minus 142 favorites. Anywhere between plus 118 to plus 127 is that number on Boston. And for Boston, at a plus 127 or higher, I'm going to be willing to take a shot here. I did set the Mets at just a minus 127. The Mets are having to travel after playing on Sunday Night Baseball, so that's a little bit of a factor here. And for Kodai Senga, well, he's been able to do a nice job of being able to keep the ball in the yard, not giving up a lot of hard contact. The 3.9 walks per 9 innings, a little bit of a concern, because right now he's got a 102 ERA, but his fielding depends more around a 285. I believe that he's going to be a good pitcher all season long, but that said, this guy's allowed 3 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts, and I do believe that there's going to be a bit of regression there for this Mets team. The good news is they do provide one of the better bullpens that you're going to find in all of baseball. Max Chronic has been giving up a few runs recently, but all in all, when you go to the likes of Oscar Berzoba been, along with Jose Buto, these long guys have been able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA. Reed Garrett has been very good in that bullpen as well. And for the New York Mets, this all of a sudden is one of the better lineups that you're going to find in baseball, as Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso have both been able to give you 9 home runs apiece. For Alonso, north of 400 on base. Lindor is hitting just below a 300, and then Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto, both are up to 8 home runs apiece. Soto, he's been able to give you north of a 380 on base after having a little bit of power outage to start the season. He's starting to pick it up. Nimmo not hitting for a lot of average, only hitting about a 230, and you've had Starling Marte when he's been out there be a little bit suspect for the team as well. But Mark Vientos, after a rough start to the season, he's starting to move the line a little bit more. When you need Jesse Winker to come up big, typically he's been able to give you some relatively good production. And on the flip side, you do have a Boston Red Sox bullpen that has been slightly above average in terms of the league, with having some of these guys be able to step up. Liam Hendricks has been a little bit shaky since he came back from just a very, very heroic off-the-field story, and the fact that he is back here is very, very good. But that said, you do have him who's been up and down. Garrett Woodlock has been much more down, though, north of 4 ERA as a long guy for the team, but you've been able to have Brandon Bernardino supply a sub-2 ERA. You've got Aroldis Chapman as your closer, and you just never know what you're going to get out of Aroldis Chapman, but so far so good this far this season. And for that Red Sox lineup, you do have a pair of guys that have been able to supply 11 home runs this season, Wilder Abreu along with Alex Bregman, and both of these guys are giving you at least a 355 on base. Trevor Story is starting to come back down to earth, hitting for about a 275 on base, 6 home runs this season. And Jarren Duran, after a rough start to the season, was able to go deep in this weekend series, so you like to see that, hitting about a 260 with Tristan Casas out for the season. You have to figure that there's going to be a bit more mixing and matching, and we've seen Robbie Gonzalez in his small sample size hit about a 300 for the team. Christian Campbell, he's starting to regress a bit, only give you about a 320 or so on base, so it is a very interesting circumstance here with Hunter Dobbins. I do think that he's going to go out there, give you a relatively solid start, as he has proven already a few times that this has been no fluke what he's been able to do here at the big league level. Right now, he's supplying you with a 390 ERA, that fielding dependent, more around about a 350, as he's not giving up the deep ball, 1 home run and 1.3 walks per 9 innings. He's only getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, not necessarily going to be that super duper power pitcher or anything like that. And if you look at what he did in the minor leagues, very much to par of that. When he was in the minors for the last few seasons, giving up about 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, and I do think that he does enough to keep the Red Sox in this game. So at a plus 127 or higher, I do like the Red Sox on the money line, and set by total at an 8.8, so at the 9, I like the under. 969, 970 on the betting board. The Orioles are hitting the road to face off against the Milwaukee Brewers, as Quinn Pricer is on the bump for the Crew, and Dean Kramer is on the bump for Baltimore. 8.5 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110, and with the Brew Crew, they're anywhere between minus 114 to minus 120 favorites, anywhere between even money, and plus 105 is that number on Baltimore. And I did set the Orioles at a plus 143, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Milwaukee Brewers. For the Brewers, Quinn Pricer is giving out a few more walks than what you'd like, 5.5 walks per 9 innings. That does take him out of starts a bit early, and for the Brewers, this has been a bullpen that has not been what it was last season, despite the fact that you turned darn near everyone. Elvis Peguero, Yo Payamps have been dealing with injuries and sent down to the minors just due to ineffectiveness in general. But you've got Jared Koenig back, Trevor McGill is back, and Abner Uribe, who I believe that he was suspended last season. He has been one of their best bullpen pieces as well, despite that 4.53 bullpen ERA thus far this season. But the Orioles are even worse, 4.93 bullpen ERA, and they had to utilize quite a few of their bullpen pieces yesterday after he saw that blow-up start from Zach Eflin. And it feels like for the Orioles, they didn't get an interim manager boost because it felt like they actually liked Brandon Hyde, and they should have gotten rid of Mike Elias, as said. And man, that's not been great for the Baltimore Orioles, to say the least. And it's not even just the pitching for this team. They're a below-average team in terms of offense as well. They have been in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home. Now, you do have Cedric Mullins, who's supplying 9 home runs, but he's back down to hitting about a 225. You've got Gunnar Henderson, who's been able to do a nice job of being able to give you about a 260 average. He's supplying the team with 7 home runs. Like Ryan O'Hearn, and the fact that he's giving you about a 390 or so with regards to that on base as well. And Jackson Holiday has been able to pick it up, but you've been dealing with a lot of injuries for the team, and then you've been having Heston Kierstead just be not so savory for the team, only giving you about a 265 on base. Ramon Laureano has been a little bit all over the place, so 5 home runs at 88 at bats, 310 on base. You'll take that, but Tyler O'Neill has been off and on injured all season long as well. And then for the Orioles, this bullpen, despite the fact that you got Yunier Cano, Felix Bautista has not been great, because Yunier Cano has been awful this far this season, north of a 4.80 ERA. The former Philadelphia Phillies, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, both posting up at least a 4.30 ERA, so that's been very suspect for them. Keegan Aiken has actually been solid in a long role, but this is just a case where I just have no faith whatsoever in our good friend Mr. Dean Kramer, as thus far this season, he's been supplying the team with a north of 5 ERA. He's giving up darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings. His walks per 9 rate, honestly, is not bad. He's only giving up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, but he's only getting about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. And with Mr. Pricer and the fact that he's got a little bit more of a lineup behind him to help, I do think that sets the Brewers in a good spot here. I'm going to be willing to lay them on the money line as with the Milwaukee Brewers. I did set my money line price at a minus 143 because I do think that they're going to do a nice job. I'll be able to get to Kramer here. You've got a Brewers lineup that has had Christian Yelich along with Jackson Chourio, both give you between 7 and 8 home runs apiece. Now, Yelich, you're just never going to find him be that MVP form of himself that he was a few seasons ago. But that said, you've got plenty of guys that are doing a nice job finding a way on base. Rhys Hoskins is not necessarily hit for a ton of power this year with just 5 home runs, but north of 390 on base. William Contreras has been able to give you north of a 350 on base. Bryce Terang is up to a north of a 366 in terms of that on base as well. And then you've had the infielders be a little bit suspect. The likes of Vinny Capra, Joey Ortiz, Caleb Duran. You're going to need to get a little bit more out of these guys, but all in all, I do think that for the Brewers, they do a nice job of being able to get to Kramer and find a way to get the job done. And with both of these shaky starters, I set a bit of a higher total, made by total in 80.8, so I like the over, and I like the Brewers on the money line. 971, 972 on the card. The Detroit Tigers are going to be on the road facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals. We do know that Sonny Gray is going to be on the bump for the Cardinals. Right now, it's old TBD who's going to be on the bump for the Detroit Tigers. Pretty much all over the place. This is off the board. The lone opener that I'm seeing at FanDuel has the Cardinals at a minus 158 plus 134 on Detroit with a total of 8.5 with the over at even money and the under at minus 120. And I'm thinking that we're going to get Kadir Montero in this spot, and I'd be setting the Cardinals at a minus 152 here. And if I could get north of a plus 134, which right now I'm seeing that run line at a plus 136, that's where I would be landing, and I'd be very surprised if it's not Montero. Now, that said, with Montero, if you do get him, you're probably going to get an opener with him as well, so you might be seeing someone like a Wilves, Tyler Holton, someone like that, who ends up being in there to start out with before you do get to Mr. Montero, who's been all sorts of just shaky, to say the least. A 4.68 ERA with a 5.82 fielding dependent thus far this season, giving up 4 walks, 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and has allowed 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. So that's something that you do want to be taking note of. And then on the flip side for Sonny Gray, ever since he's gotten to St. Louis, he's gotten ERA a full point at better at home rather than away from home. And for Gray this season, it has been a little bit more suspect because he's been giving up the deep ball. 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, still getting north of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has been in a bit of a rough patch as he's given up 3+ runs in 4 of his last 5 starts, and he does face off against the Detroit Tigers lineup that is in the top 4 in terms of run production in the American League. You've had just a trio of guys in general, and Kerry Carpenter throwing there, Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, who have been rock solid with regards to power. These 3 guys have been able to combine for 32 home runs. Carpenter is hitting for a 290. You've got Green and Torkelson both give you north of 325 on base as well. And then Trey Sweeney, he's been able to do a solid job being able for about a 250. Javi Baez, he's been able to not be useless this season as he and Gleyber Torres both hitting about a 290. You'd like to see that. And for the Detroit Tigers, this bullpen in terms of ERA, they have been number 1 ever since the All-Star break of the 2024 season as they do the bullpen madness sort of thing. Tommy Kahnle, Chase Lee, Sean Gunther, Brant Hurter is able to give you multiple innings. All these guys have been able to give you a sub 250 ERA. You've had Tyler Holden be a little bit shaky with about a 360 ERA, but he's pretty much a weak link in that bullpen. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, this has been one of the hottest teams in all baseball over the last, we're going to call it about 3 or so weeks. And a big reason why is that they're just playing good station-to-station baseball. You're right now having Lars Nootbaar with his 7 home runs be the leader in bombs for the team with about a 360 on base, but then you've got Brendan Donovan hitting at 330. Jordan Walker has been suspect for the team to say the least, but Victor Scott has given you about a 330 on base. Mason Wynn, he's been supplying 5 bombs of 350 on base, even though you're not getting a ton of power out of Nolan Arenado. He's moving the line, and for the Cardinals, after they had one of the most suspect bullpens in all baseball in the first, we're going to call it month and a half of the season, guys have been able to round into form a little bit. Phil Matone has been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. Matt Savinson has been a nice find. They've utilized him a few times as he's been able to give you sub 3 ERA. Kyle Leahy has been rock solid. I do believe that Ryan Helsley is one of the best closers in all of baseball. I just don't have a lot of faith here in Montero, so if we do get the numbers that we're getting, I said I told it at 8.3, we'll be willing to take a shot on that 8.5 under, and with Cardinals plus 135 or higher, looking at that run line, set their money line at a minus 152, and we're going to have things up with 973, 974 on the card. The Royals are on the road. They're facing off against the San Francisco Giants as Robbie Ray says hip hip hooray to another starter, and Chris with the K. Bubich is on the bump for the Royals, and the Royals are between plus 105 to plus 113 underdogs. Meanwhile, minus 125 to minus 130 is that number on San Francisco. 7.5 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And with the Giants, I set them at minus 112. So being able to get plus 113 plus, I'm going to be one to take a shot on the Royals on the money line. I just have really liked what I've seen out of Chris with the K. Bubich. He was a very highly touted prospect coming up through the minor league ranks, was a little bit shaky for his first few seasons out there at the big league level, but all of a sudden has just been able to find it. How about a $1.66 ERA. Should be doing for a little bit of regression. 269 fielding dependent, but 2.5 walks per 9 innings, 9.5 strikeouts per 9, giving up just a half home run per 9. He has been very rock solid. 0 or 1 runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. And for Robbie Ray, it's still a case where the command is shaky with him, but he's been pretty rock solid this year as well. He's posting up about a 3.04 ERA, fielding dependent of a 3.75. Again, the 4.5 walks per 9 innings is rough, but he's been able to work on giving up the deep ball. For his career, gives up about 1.4 to 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and has given up just 5 bombs in north of 50 innings thus far this season, going deeper into games as well. 4+ innings in each out of his last 4 starts, so he's been able to control the walks issues just a little bit more, and that's big for this Giants team, and has been able to keep that bullpen very fresh. As for San Francisco, for much of the season, they have actually been number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERAs. You've got a lot of guys who are doing a tremendous job of mixing and matching in that bullpen, as you've got the likes of a Taylor Rogers, along Camilo Duvall, Eric Miller. I'll give you a sub-2 ERA. Randy Rodriguez has been rock solid as well. Spencer Bivens, Hayden Birdsong have been good long guys for the Giants. You don't necessarily have that one guy that's going to go out there and give you like 30+ home runs this season. You've got Wilmer Flores, who's up to 10 this campaign, so he's been able to do a nice job getting off to a nice start to the season, hitting at 260. And though Matt Chapman doesn't hit for a lot of average, 8 home runs and a 340 or so on base. Eloy Ramos is up to a 360 on base. He's been able to give you 8 home runs. Jungle Lee hitting at 275 has been rock solid, and then you've been able to have Mike Yastrzemski move the line, give you about a 380 on base. All this despite the fact that Willie Adames has been rough with his just plate discipline thus far this season. I feel like that's been big for them. And then on the flip side, you've got a bunch that has been sort of up and down with regards to their lineup as well in the Kansas City Royals. This has been a bottom 6 team in terms of run creation, and we know that they've had some pretty big home and road splits with regards to their offense over the last few seasons, and they just haven't been able to get a lot of, shall we say, power. As Vinny Pasquantino is leading the way, 7 home runs. He's only giving you about a 270 with regards to that on base. Bobby Witt Jr., he's only been able to supply 5 home runs, but he and Miguel Garcia both had a 371 on base, both hitting right around about a 300, so they've been solid, but you need to get more out of the other guys. Michael Massey is hitting just a 205 with about a 225 on base. Hunter Renfroe, when he's been out there, has been miserable this season. Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell, though they don't supply a lot of power, hitting a 270 piece, you're going to take that. What has really been the calling card for the Royals, though, they're great pitching, as that's a big reason why they're above 500. This bullpen has actually been really good, as you've had Lucas Ursedge along Carlos Estevez be a good 1-2 punch in the back half of games, both being able to give you a sub-220 ERA. John Schreiber has been pretty solid in this bullpen, and I really like what I'm seeing as well out of Steven Cruz, Daniel Lynch. Both of these guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, so I do think that this is going to be a interesting battle here. I did set my total 7.6. I think that both Ray and Bubic experienced just a little bit of regression along with those bullpens, so I'm in on the over, but at a plus 112 or higher, we'll take a shot on the Royals on the money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Curtis Rogers, the pre- and post-game host of the Seattle Mariners on the radio side of things, for joining me in the live segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to be offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please send these into the timeline. Otherwise, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season on this podcast, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.